I'm 10 feet away from Alan Alda, and I'm freaking out. I've always been a fan of his ever since he was an actor in MASH and The West Wing, but now more than ever before, as he is teaching scientists how to communicate more effectively using the powerful tool of improvisation. So you can imagine my sheer excitement when he is looking out to the audience and he is asking for a volunteer to come on stage. I shoot my hand up like that first grader who knows the answer and knows she's going to get picked, and our eyes lock. I'm in love. And he goes and gestures to me and picks the woman right directly in front of me. Happy for her, sad for me. She walks up onto stage and he hands this woman a glass of water. It's half full. And he looks her in the eye and he says, "Now I want you to walk across the stage and come back to me with this glass of water." Well, when Alan Alda tells you what to do, you do it, so she did. And then he filled that glass to the very tippy top, and he handed her the glass and he says, "Now I want you to walk across the stage, place that full glass of water on that end table without dropping a single drop, or your whole village will die." Well, she had this fierce determination, and with one step, the entire audience just goes, and then she takes another and another, and pretty soon her cadence starts to speed up. And we're noticing the group of about 500 people are going, "You go, you go, you got this, you go, girl." And as she triumphantly places that glass of water without dropping a single drop, the entire audience erupts in sheer elation. Our whole village didn't die. And as we quieted ourselves, Alan Alda looks out to us and he says, "Now that's the power of a good story. It has high stakes, it's a shared experience, and it connects us." That's good. And that's why I'm here to talk with you today, is story has so much power. In fact, the Harvard Business Review says that stories stick with us 22 times more than data. Yeah. They have that stay power. It's that powerful tool that works our muscles to help face our struggles. Think of it as business owners, artists, whatever work you do. In 2008, the recession, stories evolved out of that, of success and of struggle. In 2019, the floods that really affected Nebraska and Iowa, more stories. 2020 and the pandemic, even more stories. Stories have that stay power. They're a persuasive tool that transports our heads to our hearts. And that's what I want to focus in on today to help all of you as the artists that you are, the creatives that you are, to really tap inside yourself and help share story in even a more powerful way to help grow and scale your business or help connect other people to what you do. So I'm going to focus in on 3 core questions that you need to ask yourself every time to frame a story in a powerful and meaningful way. Now, how many of you here like a good story? Do you remember a childhood story that you had your grandparents or a parent or an adult or teacher, read over and over again? You're like, yes, yes, yes. What was one for you?
Where the Wild Things Are.
Where the Wild Things Are. Oh, that's such a creative piece. Anyone else? Another book that you remember getting read to over and over again? Yes.
Little House on the Prairie.
Yes. Oh, Half Pint. She is my person. Absolutely.
The Hobbit.
The Hobbit, very imaginative. Stories really bring and draw out that creativity. And I remember my grandma Shirley. I still have that crunchy orange velvety chair that I would sit in with her, and we would rock, and she'd put her glasses and perch them down at the bottom of her nose, and she would read Mr. Grabbit. Now, Mr. Grabbit was this really greedy rabbit, and he had too much of everything, too many hats, coats, food, everything. But he learns and is transformed one day by the townspeople and the community to learn to not be selfish. Now, I loved how she changed her voices, embodied the characters, but what I loved the most were those conversations after the story. Because in story, we learn. In story, we change, and in story, we are transformed. So I want, with this, I want the first question that I want you to ask yourself every time you craft a story is this: what's your point of view?
Yeah.
Stories come from different points of view. Is it your story or is it someone else's story? Think of it this way. How many of you have your own business, like whether it's on the side or it's your full-time job? So many of you, right? Fabulous. All of you have a story and people want to know it, but guess what? So many of us are scared to share it. How many of you say, I'm not really a storyteller. I'm not like Uncle Bob, who's funny and engaging. I just don't know how to tell a story. Sometimes. I've even been there as well, because we put on a lofty, pedestal this idea of storyteller. But all of you have that origin story. And so the point of view is yours when you're telling your business story. Yeah. When you think of the power that has, if you get through the struggle and you share that struggle, that vulnerability, that's what people want to know. For example, with my business and Tina B LLC, I've been doing this side coaching and teaching. I taught at Creighton University for 10 years, and so I've been doing this for a myriad of years. Even Tim can attest to that. We've talked about it. And for so many moments, I was tipping my toe into, maybe I can work for myself. It's a little too scary. Yeah. Well, when I finally get into what we call this pandemic, and I'm in Act 3 of my life, I sit with myself, I meditate, and I realize I am called to do this one thing. Wow. Yeah. Why not jump out of the plane and be the creative artist that I am and just throw myself out there? And I realize people want help. Yeah. They need it. I just need to be okay with sharing it and doing it. And so that's my story of, okay, I tried not once, not twice, but 3 times. It was third time is the charm to work for myself. And I struggled. I was an in-person type of person, but guess what? I started a business virtually, and it's become international, and I never thought I could do it until a pandemic happened, because the most creativity happens in the worst of times. That's my point of view. What is your point of view? What is your story? What is the struggle that you got through? And it's got to be internal or external or both. Nobody wants to watch the movie where guy gets girl, they buy a beautiful car, they go to a beautiful house with the perfect fence, the perfect child, the perfect dog. Boring. Yeah. What they want to hear is that it was hard, that you struggled and you got out to the other side, that you had these limited beliefs, but then you figured out how to get out of it. The other type of story from what's your point of view is someone else's story. How did you make that impact on a student, on a client, on another person? I remember Tim Berry, when we met, he had this magnetic personality. And I immediately was like, I gotta get to know this guy, spend some time with him. And not only did he yes and me and help me with Ag Arts camps and do this amazing project with the Ronald McDonald House, but also when my family from Belgium came, he taught them, they got to make pots from soil from our farm. How magical is that? They still are talking about, they're drinking out of the mugs and like, we're drinking out of Iowa. But I also, when you think of the point of view, I'm telling an experience I had with Tim. That's really his, it's an experience I had with him, but I'm getting to tell about his business, his passion of art, and if I did detail it and did the full thing, it would be more about him and what his art did for me. It's sort of like Southwest Airlines. Anybody flown Southwest? Okay. A friend of mine years ago was flying every Thursday, Friday, Southwest Airlines. And this is back in the day when you had the hard copy ticket. and you had to have the ticket to get on the plane. Well, her wallet gets stolen with the ticket in it. So what does she do? She panics, she cries, she calls mom, but then she decides, I better go to that ticket agent and figure it out. The ticket agent looks at her and says, we know you. This is awful. We're going to get you on that next plane home, and here's $50 because I know you're going to be hungry. And then they called her that night to make sure she made it home safely. Now, you tell me that's not an awesome business. It's not my story, but I'm sharing her story. Are you going to think about flying Southwest next time?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. So think of whose point of view, how can you share your personal experience within your business, but other people's as well?
That's good.
Yeah.
That's the first question. What's the point of view? Second question is, who's your audience?
Yeah.
Now, of course, when you market yourself and all of that, you know that if you want to speak to everybody, you want everybody to buy art, everybody to come to your show, whatever that is. But if you're trying to get everybody, you're getting nobody. So I don't know if you've heard of Dave's Killer Bread, totally an awesome product. But what I love the most is on the back of the package, they have Dave's Killer Bread story. Here's the hook, 15 years in prison. I'm eating killer bread for real. What is the story? Well, what's cool about Dave's Killer Bread is that Dave got into some trouble. He was working at his family's bakery and then got into prison for making poor choices, stealing, whatever, and he's in prison for 15 years. During that time, he is transformed. He finds himself and he reaches out to his family and says, I need to change. I have changed. Can I please come back? I have this idea. I want to make the most healthy, nutritional bread to help people heal themselves. Can I do this in the bakery? And they accept him back.
Wow.
And he makes this amazing product, but they take it up to another level where he says, can we do this for other incarcerated people? Can we start hiring people that get out of prison, cannot get a job, but we help them get a job? So it's another layer and level. So what kind of audience is attracted to Dave's Killer Bread? People who love the altruistic piece of, wow, that's amazing. People who love good food, that's good for your nutrition and healthy soul. So ask yourself, when you have a story to share, why should your audience care?
Yeah, that's good.
What is it in your story that can attract and draw them in? What is your differentiator? Is it for a millennial that's moving fresh here to Omaha, that's wanting to be attracted to the art community and likes a good craft beer and all of that? That's a different audience you speak to than if it's a soccer mom that just needs some time away and appreciates art.
Yeah.
So it's tapping into that, using that language, and asking not only what's my point of view, but who's my audience? The third question, and this is the most powerful question I think that you need to ask, and that is this. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve with your story? Are you trying to find a partnership, funding for your project? Are you trying to gain a new client? Are you trying to build your brand? Are you trying to just get appreciation for art? What is it you're trying to achieve? How many of you have heard of Tom's Shoes? One for one, right? I think of him when Blake traveled to Argentina, who started Tom's Shoes years ago, and how he saw children without shoes. And that inspired him to create a company that would do something for the other. That would, you not only get a cool product from me, you're going to be able to pay it forward. And what a beautiful achievement he made, where it's when he tells this story and others tell the story, it keeps moving forward in terms of the story is the connector. And it's this idea, for the last couple years, I've had the opportunity to work with Practical Farmers of Iowa. And they're this nonprofit out of Ames. And it's becoming a national organization where they really care about building resilient farms. And what they wanted to do during the pandemic was they felt we need a storytelling connection at our online conference in 2021. I got the opportunity to coach those 6 farmers to tell their story. And each one of them I asked, what do you want to achieve with this story? And what was so powerful was one gentleman said, I just want people to know better, do better. Another said, I just want people to be aware we exist, that we are doing this for everyone, not just for ourselves. And that helped them craft from here their story. So when you think of kind of this triangle, it's not just about you, the storyteller. If you want to be audience-centered, it's about the audience. But at the peak of it is the story connects the storyteller to the audience. And it's being able to be in this dance of conversation with the power of words. Because as John Capecci says, we're all natural born orators of our own lives. Every single day you tell a story. And you don't even know it. You do it within your personal life. Like, did you hear so-and-so just got engaged? And then you start talking. Or you do it in your professional life. Wow. What is our culture all about? And story builds internally what people believe about the culture, but externally what others believe about that culture. And so when you're moving forward, what I want to challenge all of you is think about when and how can you build story. Remember, it starts with an idea. And it's collecting those ideas and then really focusing that idea to draft and practice and build and share a story. I want to share with you just a really cool children's book. I'm such a fan. Who here still loves to, flip through children's books? This is one I highly recommend. What Do You Do with an Idea? It's by Kobe Yamada. And what I love about this particular book is there's this child, the illustrations are just beautiful and whimsical, where you see this little boy playing with his idea. You know, he's molding it, shaping it, looking and exploring it. And what's really great is this one page says, this is my idea, I thought. No one knows it like I do, and it's okay if it's different and weird and maybe a little crazy. I decided to protect it, to care for it. I fed it good food and I worked with it and I played with it, but most of all, I gave it my attention. And at the end of the book, what I love is the question is answered. What do you do with an idea? You change the world. So your stories have the potential to change the world. So as you move forward, as the artists, the creatives that you are, think about those 3 questions every time you try to formulate a story. That first, what's my point of view? Second, who's my audience? To whom am I speaking? Because again, if you're not speaking to a specific audience, does the story really matter or does it even exist? And finally, what do I want to achieve? Because ultimately, that's how we get art to grow, thrive, and move forward. So I want you to note that you're all storytellers, to share your story and let the story do the work. Well, definitely share your story.